Okay, this video is called Instant Smarts on the ACLS test. ACLS is Advanced Cardiac Life Support. Doctors often have to repeat this like once a year or so, depending on their field. Like when I was an imaging guided surgeon, I'd have to repeat this once a year. It was a pain in the ass. Other times, though, now that I mostly do neuroradiology, I don't have to even do this test anymore. I specifically didn't want to, but I had to do it for years, and I would forget it because I don't actually use it in real practice. I didn't have to ever do this stuff. So theoretically running a code, it's typical modern medicine stuff, all this hype and excitement about something that really doesn't make much difference. Yeah, you give it a try when a patient's coding, but the real difference, teach somebody a vegan diet, you can give them 30 extra years of life. But anyways, let's talk about how do you play the game of taking tests, especially when you're really not that good at it. So I go to the ACLS center, and there's a lot of people talking. There's internal medicine doctors that run these codes on a more frequent basis that rotate through the ICU. There's ICU nurses and stuff that know all this stuff backwards and forwards. They do it every day for a living. I really don't know much about it. I just have to be there. And in a sense, the instructor is somebody who's like, usually it's like a paramedic, fireman or something, and they run these codes all the time, so they know the stuff backwards and forwards. And some of them, they have a deep understanding of it. I really have a very superficial understanding of it. I just try to memorize a few things for the test so I pass and get it over with. Anyways, I raised my hand to the teacher. I said, can we have an open book test? And she goes, are you going to have an open book in the middle of a code? Yeah, right. Okay, but I'm going to start showing you how do you play the game of taking tests. All right, so here's the book, Super Memory, Super Student. You really want to read this book. It's by Harry Lorraine. It's a very good book. It's the best of the introduction to memory techniques. And memory techniques are good for word associations, like this type of test. And what you really want to learn here, I'll show you. I learned this thing back at the time, backwards and forwards, the letter number test. I found that helped me many times. I memorized it all. I wrote them out. I could recite all these things backwards and forwards when I was a young guy. I made up different versions of it and picture versions of it in the back. So anyways, here's how this plays out in a test. You have to memorize drug dosages. Okay, so the first drug is, I'm going to show you how to do this. Believe me, this is worth knowing. Amiodarone, 300 milligrams. Okay, you're like, oh, how do I remember that? And what you do is you look for the letter number alphabet. M is for amiodarone. So M is like three downward prongs, okay? And then you turn that sideways like rotating in the sky. That's how you make the letter 3. Okay, then there's 2 letter O's in there. I'm going to make those O's 300 milligrams. Amiodarone, 300 milligrams. Easy, okay? By the way, tie is like a vertical thing, like a tie. I got my Irish tie on because it's St. Patrick's Month, March 2025. And a vertical line, that's 1 for tie. 2 is Noah because the letter N has 2 downstrokes in the writing of it. So 3 is M. There's 2 O's in there. 300 milligrams. Okay, that's a walk in the park. I got that one. All right, let's see. What's the next one? My program saving. I had to let it save. Okay, the next drug was adenosine, 6 milligrams. Okay, so I'm like adenosine, 6 milligrams. How do I remember that? Give me a clue. Give me something to connect adenosine to 6. And I just remember adenosine, that sounds like adenosix. Adenosix reminds me of sex. Throw in something violent or sexual, and then it becomes more memorable. Adenosex, okay, I got it. Adenosine, 6 milligrams. Next. Basically, that's what I did for all of them. I was the first person done in the class. I did really well on it. I passed. And what I'm trying to say is, because I tried to ask myself, what is the purpose of the test? They're not asking me to really be able to run a code. They're not asking me. They just have to pretend to teach me, and I have to pretend to know. So I just have to memorize the stuff that's going to be on the test. In the real world, the hard part of being about a doctor, I think, is you have to sort out all the noise from reality. That's challenging. That requires a lot of knowledge. But a test is really just playing a game with a limited number of choices. How are they trying to trick me? What are they going to want me to know? How can I play the game? How can I memorize this? Here it is. Okay, it's a game. What are the examiner? I asked myself, what do they want me to know for this test, and how are they trying to trick me? And then how can I win the game? All right. So that's how I did it, and that's what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of situations like this where you have these little mini hassles in the academic world. And having a trick up your sleeve like the letter number alphabet helps you just to kind of crush stuff and make yourself seem smarter than you are. It's well worth learning study skills. They make a big difference. Like I said, I went from being a mediocre B- student at Stanford to being an A+ student in the most difficult classes by a combination of study skills, intensity, determination, studying a lot, good health habits, etc. But study skills are very valuable, and memorization techniques very valuable.